This week's episode of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast is driven by Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos that includes everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com to sign up for their free preview module and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. You are listening to the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, episode 142. This week on the show, we're talking wood ducks as we share some of our tips and techniques to help you be more successful in the early season on those woodies. All right, welcome to the episode 142 of the HP Outdoors Waterfowl podcast, where your on-demand audio source for all things waterfowl and waterfowl hunting. Check us out, hpoutdoors.com. across all social media platforms, and anywhere you can find quality podcast content. iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, all the good ones. You can find our show this week, which is brought to you by Gunner Kennels, engineered for your dog, designed for travel, and built for your peace of mind. The G1 Kennel has set a new industry standard and put Gunner in a category all its own. They were started to protect your pet, and it continues to be at the center of everything they do. They're dedicated to building the best and safest pet travel crate on the market, because man's best friend deserves man's best kennel. Check out their G1 series of kennels and accessories at gunnerkennels.com. Also, thank you to Eukanuba, where how you've prepared determines how you'll perform. With balanced fat and protein to support peak condition, Eukanuba premium performance dog food enhances strength, energy, and endurance. When the pavement ends and the truck doors swing open, you and your dogs are ready for anything. Strong focus and ready for anything. That's a Eukanuba dog. Joining me this week on the show, as he always does, is my co-host, Dan Harushka. Dan, what's up, man?
Not too much. Weather report. We've had like 4 days of sun in a row. It's been exhilarating to not rain for months on end. It's funny. I saw a joke the other day that it says that once you get married, you turn from fiance into husband into weatherman. And since I saw that, it's literally like 2.5, 3 weeks ago, every day the wife asks what the weather's going to be like, as far as like, dressing the kids and all that. And I'm just like, that was a very funny joke that I didn't realize at the time. But
yeah, you definitely talk weather more than most.
Yeah, that's probably because I'm accustomed to it. I'm just like, I've been formed into that role, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
How about you? What's good with you?
Just baseball going on. Spent the weekend with your brother down at Old Dominion University.
Double.
Yeah. With the
did anyone hit it? Did anyone hit a double, and did he yell that?
There were doubles hit. He did not yell that I heard. That doesn't mean he didn't do it. I just didn't hear it. It's hard to. I kind of zone in when I'm coaching first base and I'm just giving people the windmill as they're turning one, and I'm telling them to dig, kind of thing.
Yep.
So yeah, but good times. We had a good weekend down there. The kids played well. Took runner up in the tournament. Not the finish we were hoping for, but great weekend all around. And now I'm ready, locked in here for the 4th of July, ready to get this going. And actually, the topic of this week's episode, talking about wood duck hunting, was brought on by the post that you put on our Instagram account this week, talking about woodies and hunting them in the early season, and how that's kind of here in our area of the world, sort of what we get our first crack at. I know you don't, but we do here in Virginia have the early teal season. And although there are opportunities where I live, they're not widespread and certainly inconsistent. So I don't even really count that. And I count the early season as pretty much wood duck time. With outside of Canada geese, obviously, but yeah. So I thought, hey, let's talk a little bit about how we approach that, because I know wood ducks are something that are abundant here, at least in the Atlantic Flyway, and it seems to be a good one for people who are just kind of getting into duck hunting, or maybe they've going on the first couple hunts, and we'll talk a little bit about why they're a good one for that purpose. But yeah, I thought that'd be a good one to cover sort of our tips and techniques that have allowed us to be successful on woodrows, as it's one of our most commonly harvested duck, especially in the early season.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that too, as far as not having an early teal season. Really, more recently, I've actually seen a lot more teal around, but historically, it's been a lot of wood ducks and mallards once duck season comes in. But yeah, that was on my mind quite a bit. And, a lot of people, I think the highest response was either Canada's or teal that people, harvest first of the year, but because there's an early goose season in most places. But, as far as ducks go, we kind of get ramped up for a duck hole shoot and go from there.
Yeah, I don't really see teal in huntable numbers, let's say, very often in the early season. I think the most I've ever seen on one spot was like a group of like 20, right? Mm-hmm. And they were gone like the next day. So it's definitely not like Kansas and Texas and some of these other places where they get balls of them, and they're just not knotted up. It's definitely not that here. So if I were to find some in huntable numbers, obviously we'd pursue that, but I don't really bank on that and don't really count on my first good duck shoots coming on until that first week in October, when we get a couple days here to bang on some of the resident mallards and wood ducks. So
now, do you get a lot of teal later in the season? Because we've had a lot of like green wing teal show up after it starts getting frosty in the mornings and even some snow. Yeah, and quite a few green wings have been sticking around.
Yeah, we definitely kill green wings around here. I think of early season teal, to me, is primarily blue wing.
Yep.
At least that's what comes to mind. Because we'll kill teal later in the season when it's cold. There's still some hanging around, so they're not as common and not as abundant, but there are still some that hang around. But I'm talking those good early season blue wing shoots. We don't really get a lot of them here, at least where I'm at. I'm sure there are probably people in the state that do have the opportunities to get on them, but they're just not that, they're not that widely distributed as far as I'm aware of. So we kind of shift our focuses to woodies, and I'm not even a little bit mad about that because I love hunting wood ducks. It's some of the most fun hunting that I've ever had, and it is in fact the duck that got me hooked on waterfowl hunting. It was the first duck I ever saw come into a waterfowl impoundment I was hunting on my very first hunt. It was a Drake Woody that snuck in on us, and all I heard was the duck hit the water, and we're like, what was that? And we look, and this is the most beautiful, Drake wood duck that I'd ever seen was just floating there in the water in the decoys right in front of us. And I was like, holy cow, that thing's amazing looking. And then it was kind of on from there for me. So yeah, kind of hold the woody near and dear a little bit.
Yeah, wood ducks, and it's funny because I don't want to say wood duck hunting is easy, but it seems like it's easier. I don't consider the strategy as much as, say, mallards.
Well, I think there is. I know what you're getting at. I think there is strategy. What I think is there's less nuance. Like there's less variables and less things that you gotta, that go into it. And I think that's part of the discussion here, for people that are maybe just getting started or maybe just want to try it on their own for the first time. If you've got wood ducks that you can hunt, hopefully this will give you some tips to get you set up. But I think some of the stuff that we'll say will definitely apply to other ducks as well. But, these are some of the things that, we've just been successful doing over the years. And, what makes it one of the things, again, 3 woodies is kind of the go-to early season duck limit for me. If I can bang that up, you're in good shape. So why don't we just dive into it? Start talking some strategies, unless you got something else you want to get into.
No, I think that's good. I guess, like we say it all the time, but first things first, there's two ways you can go about it, right? You can find the X by scouting, and that makes it a lot easier, or you can get between where they're roosting and where they're going to feed and get pass shooting, which pass shooting, they're fairly fast and a pretty durable duck. So as a new hunter, I would coax you in a way of finding the X, like a marsh or slough, beaver pond, stream, swamps, wherever, flooded old timber, wherever they might be around, and finding where they really want to be, and it'll make it that much easier. Because, like I said, pass shooting woodies is. It takes me back to the place we went on French Creek, and you can hunt bends of a river, and you have to be on alert the entire time, because those things, they'll come screaming around a corner and they'll be past you before you even know it, and then you're shooting over people and can get kind of crazy. And that's definitely a ton of fun, but it's more difficult than actually being on the X.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that go with that. I think most people unless you have access to like a pond or a swamp or something where they just happen to be going to, a lot of people are hunting wood ducks in pass shooting situations. It just tends to be pretty common, right? So yes, if you can set up, and that was actually my first thing, if you can get set up where they want to be at first light, you're going to be in for a banger hunt. But if you can't, pass shooting is definitely viable. There's a couple of things I think that's important about understanding with wood ducks is, they're going to be in places just like every other duck where food is abundant and that kind of stuff. But like you talk about these creeks and stuff like that, any creek that has like mature trees, it may drop acorns and things of that nature into the water that kind of hang over. Those are going to be places that wood ducks like, stuff like that has been very good to us over the years hunting wood ducks. The drawback to that is it can be some pretty close quarter shooting, right? And it'll definitely test even the best of hunters. So being aware and being ready to go is important, because that first flight right at opening light is going to be crazy, and then it might die off pretty quick. So you just never really know how long it's going to be. So you definitely got to be ready and take your opportunities when you get them, for sure.
Yeah, the one website I was looking at, they're talking about the water, and they don't like. You're not going to see wood ducks in open water. You're not going to see them out in the middle of a lake. And it was saying, open water that alternates with 50 to 75% vegetative cover, such as down trees, like you said, shrubs and like alder, willow, button brush, stuff like that. Big brush coming out of the water. They like to get into all that and swim around it and feed. Their diet is 80% plant material. So I think that you could do, if you have a pond in the back 40 somewhere and have some duckweed or millet during these summer months, put it down, and it's a little drier depending where you're at. And, you might bring a few more into that. And I think I mentioned it a few times, but the railroad track right down from my house, and railroad tracks all over the place usually have water right next to them. And the wood ducks will fly up and down that pretty much all day. And there's a beaver dam just formed recently in the last couple of years. And it's flooded down there with woodies. Yeah. I'm going to be sitting on some railroad tracks this year, I think.
Yeah. And that's the thing too. With one of my other points with wood ducks is, and this is not unlike other ducks, but particularly I think wood ducks are sensitive to shooting out roost areas and blowing those out, because they do cover kind of like, it's like one of those things where, like they're going to come into that spot at the end of the night. So you can hunt them in the evening in spots like that. But just know that if you hunt them on those spots where they're coming at night, you're going to blow them out of there pretty quick. I mean, they're usually one of the first to roll out anyway, based on weather and things like that. So if you start banging on them where they feel most comfortable, you're going to lose them even quicker. So one of the things you can do is have a better understanding of where they're traversing, like you're talking about. Identify an area like a railroad track that gives you the ability to get some good shooting on them and just leverage that, right? And not blow out the roost areas and just bang away on those. And a good thing about these types of spot is a lot of, archery hunters and stuff like that out there are going to be, deer hunt these types of same areas. So it's a great spot. If you see a bunch of woodies piling into a beaver swamp or something nearby where you're archery hunting one night, as much as you might want to get in there and bang on that particular spot, I would advise against that and try to understand kind of where they're going to from there in the morning. And that's really where you want to get to or get in between those two spots, because that'll really allow you to kind of get the most length out of that group of birds.
I have a couple comments to make about that.
Okay.
The roost, if you're gonna I don't know why I'm laughing. If you're gonna hunt the roost, I wouldn't take a ton of people. If you're gonna hunt that right before shooting light ends, maybe yourself and one other person get in and get out. Shoot your 3 ducks and get out before all the rest of them come back. It should be a quick one. It shouldn't be there. And, you should be able to get in, put a few decoys out, shoot a couple ducks, and get out. And even if you want to watch it from a distance, but I wouldn't be hanging around and, just BSing and making a lot of noise when they're coming back, because that's their safety. So stay there. Second point I want to make, if you are just getting into waterfowl hunting and you either were archery hunter or archery hunters or deer hunters, I would ask them if they know of any, backwater holes, if they see any wood ducks flying around. And I've heard people get mad when duck hunters are in there shooting woodies or shooting ducks during duck season and archery when it's concurrent. But at the same time, I've heard more people say that there's not too many archery hunters that are going to be walking through the middle of a swamp like a duck hunter, and that's going to get deer moving. And a lot of people have shot deer while the duck hunters pushed them out and are shooting and get them up and moving where they would be usually bedded down somewhere around there. So it could be a big advantage to a whitetail hunter to have you go in there and fire off some shots at some woodies. Yeah,
no doubt. I think you're probably going to get a lot of pushback on that still, though, because in theory, you're probably potentially going to bust out that buck they're after or whatever in its bedroom, which I'm sure they're not going to be a fan of unless they actually get to kill it that one time. So take the opportunities as you can get them, or if it's your spot, manage it wisely. And actually something that you mentioned in that kind of leads me to another point that I wanted to bring up about duck hunting for woodies. I personally do not stress the decoy situation with wood ducks. I mean, I tend to throw a couple out just because I feel like when I go duck hunting, I need to throw a couple decoys out almost. But I don't think that's often the reason why I either have or do not have success. If you're pass shooting, I've had virtually no luck getting ducks to work into a spread in an area where they don't want to be. This is just my personal experience. Doesn't mean that others haven't had that, but if I'm in a pass shooting area, I rarely have ever broke one off that just decides to come ball up and work in my decoys. It just doesn't seem to happen very much. The other thing is, if you've only got mallards and you're just getting started and you got a dozen mallards, I think you could throw a handful of mallards out and be just fine. I don't think decoys is a huge thing, because if they're going to ball up and just dump into your spot, most likely you're either on their roost spot in the evening or you're where they want to be in the morning. Again, this is just my experience, but I don't think you need to stress over decoys much, at least early on in your hunting career, if you're targeting woodies.
Yeah, I think a lot of the pass shooting areas are really great places for them to be circling anyways. A lot of streams and rivers, stuff like that, have big trees all around. So that makes a lot of sense. But I would say, going back to the decoy spread, we don't put a ton out. Again, if you have a beaver pond or something like that, they want to be near the brush. So keep it closer to land or closer to brush wherever you're at. It'll look a little more natural. But one thing that has changed the wood duck hunting game for us being on the X is the jerk string, making sure, a lot. Here we go. The motion. And I actually haven't had a spinner out for wood duck, so I have no experience in that regard, but the jerk string, just that little bit of movement has been like a magnet. Like they see it. And a lot of the beaver ponds and stuff, you still have trees around, right? So you don't have a ton of wind. There's not a lot of movement on the water, and that little bit, man, they've been screaming into it lately. That's been it's been a game changer, getting that movement out there.
Yeah, I mean, I would suspect if that's truly the X, they're coming there anyway. But right. What I do think it helps is it helps put them in a position where you can hopefully shoot them a little easier. Because like in that situation, probably the only ducks that I would have out in the, air quotes here, open area of whatever you're hunting would be if it was on a jerk string, because I would be simulating a bird that's just balled up and hit the water, and I'm jerking that string, simulating him landing on the water. Not so much just like casual swimming, right? Because I most of the time the wood ducks that I've seen are tucked along the bank, and they don't move the water much, kind of naturally as they move around. So I tend to yank it in the hole a little bit for that effect. Who knows if that's something that works or not? But again, like I said, most of the times when I kill woodies, I'm pass shooting them in areas that I know I'll get a lot of shooting, more volume, and I don't really stress the decoy so much.
The beaver pond that we hunt, and I know you went and we scouted there and saw all kinds of beavers swimming around and stuff like that, but I think that was on an early goose hunt, right?
We did not. We didn't hunt geese there, no. We scouted in the morning.
Yeah. And then the following day we hunted geese, right?
Yeah, maybe. I don't remember.
I don't think you ever duck hunted there. But the way you look like through that, it has all kinds of beaver runs, a little bit of an opening, and I mean, it's fairly wide open, 100 yards across, probably 150 yards long. And it's just a bunch of beaver runs, and in between it is tall grass. So when they come screaming over the trees, they have a few areas to pick from of where they want to land. And before we start using that jerk string, they might circle and go down 80 yards away from us.
Yeah.
And once we start using that jerk string and they see that little bit of extra movement, like I said, man, it's been game on.
Yeah, I can see that, because they're definitely coming to that spot anyway. You're just getting them centered up a little easier for you by doing that.
Right.
So yeah, that makes complete sense. The other thing I will say about woodies is that they can definitely be shot in fields. I think that's something, at least I know in your area, and definitely for me, I don't typically think about shooting ducks in fields that often, but woodies are definitely one that can be shot in the field. So when you're doing your early season honker hunting and scouting, keep your eyes open for woodies hitting those fields, because they definitely could be an option for you that are in play.
Yeah, I think early goose, we always see big knots of ducks flying around, and then it seems like our core area where we hunt, a lot of the ducks do not come to fields once duck season opens. But north of us, they get on some banger shoots. I know New York has a ton, a ton of good wood duck hunts and cut corn, and then we've been in a few cut cornfields goose hunting during a split and had a lot of ducks coming too. So we've never had good woody hunts in fields, but I know there's guys just north of us, maybe 45 minutes up into New York even, that really get on them. So that's definitely something to look at. If that's a scout, then get out there. Yeah. And I wouldn't even, I don't think you need, I don't know if I've ever seen a field wood duck decoy, but a lot of the guys will just put some Canadas out and or mallard field ducks and get after them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Again, I don't think decoys are a huge deal either way when you're dealing with woodies personally.
Nope.
But interesting thing I saw here. So the most recent issue of Wildfowl magazine, it's the Giant Gear issue, if anyone subscribes to that.
I've not seen it yet.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite of the year, because it's got like a full typical issue of articles and stuff, and then it's got a bunch of new gear and everything, which is cool. A lot of stuff from the companies that we work with, and Boss is kind of the big one this year in this magazine. So you see their stuff all over the place. But in this magazine, one of my favorite parts is they've got this little thing called, these little like small in article columns, they're called like the fifth flyway and by the numbers. And they just got some random stuff in here. Like it says, June 15th is the last day you can legally hunt snows and Ross geese in Saskatchewan. 60% of North American migrating birds use the Mississippi flyway, things of that nature. Well, one of the foul facts that they've got in there is that it says that you may have seen a viral image of a screech owl sharing a nest with a duckling last spring. I didn't see that photo. But
I saw it.
Okay, so you know what this is referring to then. It says, well, it's not a hoax. The duckling is likely a wood duck, and they're known to practice bird parasitism, which means basically the hen will lay eggs in the nest of different species, which then hatch the ducks, the chicks, which I thought was very timely for this week's topic. But I thought that was pretty cool, and I have not seen that photo, so maybe if someone has it or knows where to find it, they can post it in our Facebook group. Okay, I'll check that out. But anyway, little neat little nature tip.
Little nature tip.
Yeah.
One thing I found was that the nest tree can be situated up to 1.2 miles away from water.
Interesting.
I would have thought, you always put up wood duck boxes and you try and put it near water or in water, and that I was kind of taken back, not too far taken back, but I was like, wow, 1.2 miles away from any kind of water. Because when those ducklings come out, they jump right out of the hole, right?
Right.
So you assume
they're not far from water.
Yeah. It seems like a
maybe
pretty long walk.
Maybe I don't know. That seems maybe it's like referring to traditional water. Maybe that doesn't account for like seasonal stuff. I mean, I don't know. It just seems very strange to me.
Yeah, see, taken back. So one of the things also, the cavity depths, usually they, average around 2 feet, but they can be in rotten trees that can be 15 feet deep, a 15-foot nest. And it says that the young use their clawed feet to climb out. That's a tough start to life, man. You have to climb up 15 feet and then jump out
it's like
15 feet high.
Bane,
Yeah.
Come out like, oh, you nearly embraced the darkness. I was raised in it. Terrible Bane impersonation.
That was really weird. So, average clutch size 6 to 16 eggs.
It's quite a few.
Yeah. I got another question for you.
Oh, okay. Massive lip smack.
That was a good one. That was I a deep breath and everything. I just hammered it out. All right. What is the oldest wood duck on record?
Oh, jeez. 18 years.
And I'll give you an at least, because that's what it said.
Okay.
At least 22 and a half years.
That wasn't that far off.
No, not at all. And it was banded in Oregon and found in California.
Interesting. That is actually a point that I was going to bring up about wood ducks. They are definitely, at least in our area, and I assume others, they are heavily banded. Mm-hmm. So if you are into shooting banded ducks or things of that nature, woodies are a good opportunity to do that, because a lot of times they're resident birds. They band them up, and then you may shoot 2 or 3 in a pass that are banded, because they're all in the kind of the same family type of deal. So that it's almost like the early Canada season equivalent, if there is such a thing, as far as opportunities to get bands.
They for any listeners out there, if there is somewhere to find the number of different species banded, I would think that would be pretty interesting to look at. What are the most banded birds?
I gotta think mallards and wood ducks are up there as far as ducks, just because they're the easiest to get to, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think. At least that's why I don't know. That's my assumption, but yeah, I don't know definitively.
I don't feel like Googling it right now. So here's another question for you. Have you ever jump shot woodies?
Yes. I have done it.
How'd it go?
I like doing it. I think it's a lot of fun. And I would highly recommend it to all. They're a great duck to float a creek, kayak, canoe, whatever, jump drainage swales. Yeah, you name it. Small little pocket water, back, low lying grassy areas. All good opportunities to get quick shooting in on ducks. So, yeah, huge fan of jump shooting. Definitely would recommend it.
Yeah, my father, I know Thad, my father-in-law, he grew up jump shooting ducks. He just walk French Creek up through Cambridge Springs, and his dog at the time, I think it was Duke. It was a girl named Duke. He had her trained to where every step he took, it would just right next to him, and like if he got down and she would be crawling right next to him, and then jump up, shoot a couple, and jump across the creek and get up there and get him on the other side and pull him back. So that's one thing to be careful of if you are doing it. Make sure you know what kind of water you're getting into and what's on the other side, obviously, before you start shooting. But yeah, a lot of jump shooting around here, but that's something that actually I have done that on a beaver pond, and it was fun. I actually shot a banded mallard on it.
Nice. Yeah.
My first banded mallard.
Jump shooting is great. You were hitting on another point that I wanted to make, that if you've got a retriever, definitely bring it along, because a lot of these early hunts, there's a lot of foliage on the trees still. There's a lot of grasses that are growing up. They haven't been knocked down by frost and the cold weather yet. So, you can shoot a duck that has fallen into some pretty gnarly stuff. Having a dog helps recover those any time of the year, but it's particularly helpful at that time with woodies. They can be pretty tough to, recover sometimes. They can dive and hold on to tree roots and things underwater. They can do a lot of different stuff that makes it difficult on you without a retriever. So definitely would encourage that. And also, if you're in an area where you're hunting like a creek or something like that, whether you're floating it or walking it, just make sure you know the laws of your state and who owns what, because you may be legally able to hunt an intercoastal waterway or some type, but maybe private property on both sides of that. So you may not legally be able to actually get out of the boat into the land to recover ducks and things like that. So just know what you're getting into when you're doing some of this stuff, so that you don't find yourself in trouble legally.
All great points. Another one, usually early season wood duck hunting, if you are in that thick stuff, if you are in water and using a dog, I would recommend not having a vest on it. One, for the heat. Two, because I know some of the places we go, just so many things that it could get caught on. And then you find yourself, your dog out there and struggling to get free of branches or anything like that. So try not to get in that hairy situation.
Yeah, totally agree. The other thing I think that's really fun about wood ducks is they taste great. They're great table fare. I think they eat probably as close to a similar diet as like a deer or something like that. They're delicious. Unfortunately, they're not quite as big as like a mallard or things like that, so it may take you a few more. But great eating table fare. You don't have to get creative with the recipes and stuff like some ducks. It's just however you like your favorite duck to be cooked, get after it, because, they're definitely up there in the top handful of ducks as far as my opinion, on best tasting.
Dude, some of the duck I had last year with horseradish sauce was so good. I think we need to do a cooking episode before season starts. There's so many people ask about it. I
don't know anything about cooking, so that's fine.
We'll get someone on.
Neither do you. All you do is smoke ribs.
Not I think wrong. We need to. No, you're not wrong. I do love smoking ribs. This is getting me all kind of jazzed up, man. I know we're still a couple months out, but it's really not too far away.
Yeah, it really isn't. I mean, time flies. I mean, we're in July already. I do believe that I'm not over accurate when I say there will be people at least goose hunting next month in certain parts of the country. Is that correct? Pretty sure like the North Dakota season comes in late August.
Yep, they always have a early season. Yep.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it's really, it'll be here before we know it. That's the crazy thing. Seems like the off seasons, I don't know why they seem to I don't know if they seem to be shorter to me these days, but I feel like it's just because I'm busy with a bunch of other stuff going on, and that absorbs up all my time. But yeah, I mean, I feel like the season's approaching, and I've done literally nothing to be prepared.
I have another question for you with the lip smack involved. This is actually a listener question, a guy just getting started, and it was through our Instagram, and I have yet to respond, but I figured we could talk about it on here because it has to do with early season. It's teal hunting, but we can go into it. All right. Hey, guys, I have a quick question about early season teal hunting. I'm new to waterfowl hunting, and I don't know a whole lot about the early season stuff. I have green wing decoys, blue wing decoys, and mallards. Most of my blue wings are drakes, and half of the green wings are. I've been told after buying them that in the early season, drakes aren't that colorful. So my first question is, if I use drakes in the early season, is it going to make birds not come in? That's the first question.
Okay.
And my next question is, can I put blue wing and green wing teal decoys in the same spread? And will a mallard or two hurt anything? Also, does it matter if I'm on open water or in marshes? So 3 questions.
Okay, what's the first one again?
If I use drakes in the early season, is it going to make birds not come in?
See, when I hear that, based on the decoys he said he had, I think he's talking about the mallards, right? Like the drake and mallards aren't that colorful early in the year.
I would think so,
because I've not observed that necessarily on teal. So I think that's maybe what he's referring to. And I also just don't think it matters. I just think we give ducks way too much credit on decoy realism and things of that nature. I mean, I don't think that's going to matter whatsoever.
No, and some you're going to get a nice plumage on a mallard early season and very beautiful by the end of the year. So, I wouldn't worry about that too much. Next question is, can I put blue wing and green wing teal decoys in the same spread? Of course you can, but if it's early season, I'm not sure where he's from, but if it's blue wing teal that you're targeting, I'd probably just go with that. I wouldn't put too many out. If you have 6 or 12 or whatever you have, just throw out whatever you're hunting.
Yeah, I don't. Again, I think that one's a little more geographic specific because, if you're hunting like Cheyenne Bottoms, maybe you'll see both. But where we're at, for the most part, it's blue wing. We don't have a lot of resident teal hanging out. So if we're seeing teal in September here, this is just my experience. Could be different other places. They're blue wing for the most part. So I'd try to replicate what's there if I could.
Copy the scout.
Yeah.
And will a mallard or two hurt anything?
Negative.
Nope. But if it's early season teal, no, it won't hurt anything. It might actually help with some viewing, depending if sunny and get some shine off the white. Might be helpful. It definitely won't hurt anything. Also, does it matter if I'm on open water or in marshes? Again, I would just,
I think it could matter depending on what you saw in your scout,
Yep.
If you're seeing them in open water, then it's not going to matter. If you're not seeing them in open water, you're probably not going to see them if you throw decoys out there.
Yeah.
So you're not going to matter anyway.
Yep.
So just
try and find it. So much depends on the scout.
Yeah. And I think and this is a mistake I think people make, they want to throw, especially new hunters. I feel like this is a new hunter thing that you just, you see on TV and you see on magazines, guys got all these decoys slung on their shoulders and hunting over these big spreads. So they want to put out as many decoys as they can because they think that's going to help their situation, which in some cases it will. But in this situation, you're probably better off to get as close to the X as you possibly can, as always, and try to replicate what you're seeing as much as possible. So if you're seeing a pile of teal in there, but you only got 12 teal decoys and you got 5 dozen mallard decoys, I'd go with the 12 teal and see what you can do with that. Maybe a dozen or half a dozen mallards, but I would not throw out 5 dozen mallards just to put that many decoys in the hole. You know what I mean? Like, try to replicate it as best you can, knowing that, you know, if all those birds aren't coming in at once, some of those birds are only going to see 12 ducks in the hole anyway, right? So just try to mimic it the best you can, use motion appropriately, get concealed nice and tight. Because if you're on the X, if you're where they want to be, they should be wanting to get in there anyway. So don't overthink it. Don't stress it out. Just get covered up real good and get ready to shoot.
Yep. And this takes me back to my hunt last year. It was just myself and Kimber before work, went live in a group, shot 2 mallards and a black duck, and I had 5 decoys out and 1 spinner. And so it's like, usually when you go out to that lake, I don't know what that giant sigh was about, but
this hunt is just like living in infamy,
dude. It's like I need to
every week.
I need to. Anyway, a lot of the times being different. You go out to that lake most times, and there's a ton of just huge spreads put out everywhere.
Yeah.
You have all the spinners out, be a little different, and like you said, do the scout, mix it up, see what happens.
Yep, for sure.
That day, I had all my decoys with me, and it would have been very easy to put out, goose floaters and all my duck decoys, but I went with 5 and a spinner, and it worked well.
And so the lake was pretty froze up that morning too, no?
Yeah, it was like probably, I want to say 60 yards out. Just the edge was froze.
Yeah.
So busted a hole. Like I said, I could have put, goose floaters. I could have set them on the ice, could have had other decoys all around, but it's not what I did. And it worked.
It's pretty neat.
Very neat.
All right. So what else you got on the Woodrow hunting front?
That's about it, man. I like wood duck hunting. And now our wood duck limit is higher than our mallard limit. So probably going to focus more on that this year.
What are your thoughts on wood duck calls?
I have the whistle, but I don't. I think it's more like you said. If you're on the X and they're coming in, I might hit it once or twice, but I'm not blowing it a ton. Just my personal experience.
I mean, I don't have any dog in the fight with wood duck calls. I've never seen one work. To the extent where I'm like, there's a duck flying by, someone hits the call, and it like banks hard, and it's like, oh snap, someone's calling at me, and it comes
and
in.
That's the reaction that we've been getting out of the jerk rig, and we've hunted this place for 9 years now, and probably the first 4, we tried calling. Usually mallards flying too, so we use a mallard call, and they might just dump down on the other side of the swamp, something they didn't like. Maybe they saw us, I don't know. But since we added that jerk rig in, it's just like a magnet. So if they're flying on the far side, I'll hit something, and I can't even say that that's what caused it to come over. It's almost like they came in on that side, and then a little bit of motion they saw and joined the bigger pocket. So I don't put a lot of eggs in that basket like you.
Yeah. So if you can't blow a wood duck call, don't stress it. I think that's the most appealing thing to me about wood duck hunting is literally you don't have to know how to duck hunt, like in the traditional sense. Just figure out where they're flying and go get covered up and just try to shoot them as you're flying by, because they're going to have those, railroad tracks, creeks, whatever it is that they're flying up and down, and they're going from point A to point B, and just try to knock them down. That's pretty much what it boils down to. Or get in your canoe and float a creek and try to jump them when you come around a bend, things like that. It's fun. It's fast paced. It's great table fare. There's not a lot of downside, in my opinion. It's just one of the great opportunities that we have here in the Atlantic Flyway.
So would you say that wood duck hunting is similar to diver hunting?
Negative.
No?
No. I mean, I think it's pretty different. A lot more equipment needed for diver hunting.
Definitely a lot more equipment.
Typically, with the exception of few, not nearly as good table fare. Similar in the sense of calling. I don't really call it divers that much. Motion is important in both, and is important on divers for sure. I think the biggest thing though is typically you're hunting divers, at least where we hunt divers, much more open water, not the back sloughs, things like that. I know there's other areas of the country that hunt them in more slough type areas, but not where we are. It's big water. It's fast and it's similar in that sense of like setting up and shooting. I mean, I've killed a lot of divers pass, fly by my lines and just get close enough and I knock them down. Kill a lot of divers like that. Similar to the wood duck thing. But where they definitely differ is on the equipment side. A lot more goes into it with the diver hunting.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah, some of the wood duck hunts have been some of the nastiest water I've ever been in. Some of the nastiest swamps.
Yeah.
And just get tangled up and trees underneath the water and just,
pretty much every hunt that I go on in October where I'm hunting for wood ducks here in Virginia, I'm also worried about getting bit by snakes. It's like that kind of environment where we get into the wood ducks. So good times though. Good times.
We got a storm rolling in.
Glad to hear it. Weatherman Dan.
Weatherman Dan. Yeah, raining. We got thunder rolling.
You could have a feature with the Channel 4 news team.
I'm going to have to call them up. Good
news
friends with
team,
Brick.
Assemble. All right. What else you got for me this week, Dan?
Good Lord. Just a lip smack for you. 4th of July, man. That's probably your outro, though. So I hope everyone this will be coming out Monday, way after 4th, but I hope everyone had a great weekend, and that's about that. I'll be traveling and having a good time.
Yeah, I'm staying home, hopefully relaxing. Don't have any baseball or anything this weekend, so looking forward to some barbecuing and just.
What are you making?
Oh, I'm not making anything. I'm going to other people's houses for stuff. Although I do have a couple rotisserie chickens I could smoke if the opportunity comes up. But
so, do you ever go to barbecues now and just wish that they smoked meat?
Pretty much every barbecue I go to now, they smoke meat.
There you go.
Like, this is no lie. Every house on my street, which is where we do most of our barbecuing, all of them have smokers. Every single one of them. Some of them multiple, actually.
Smart people.
Yeah. So the move is typically everyone just smokes some stuff and brings it. For 4th of July, one family kind of hosts a big party, and her husband actually is the most accomplished smoker of us all. I think he has like 3 green eggs that he runs at one time. So yeah, there'll be plenty. So I'm in good shape there.
That's a cheap setup.
Yeah. Pretty neat. So what else? Anything else you got here before we close it out?
No, man. Well, what would you recommend shot size and choke for wood duck hunting? Because most of this is close quarters before we get out. A lot of people are asking, man. I'm just trying to follow up on emails that we get.
Yeah. I mean, my answer to this is just like every other time I get asked this question. I shoot 2. If I'm shooting steel, I'm shooting 2s and I'm shooting full choke. That's just what I shoot if I'm shooting steel. This year I'll be shooting boss. So I will be shooting 5s, probably 2 3/4 most of the year, if not the whole year. And I'll still be shooting full choke. I think again, this is just me. I think most people get in their head and it's a mental thing about the choke and being able to hit birds at close range with full chokes. I just believe if you put your freaking bead in front of the bird and swing through the shot, you'll kill it no matter what you got in your gun. Just do what you're comfortable with and what you can tell yourself in your mind that you have confidence in, and then get after it. What do you think?
I agree. And I'm the same. Here's another thing. One more thing. The highly debated water SWAT issue. And there was, it's been going on in a group. Neither one of us chimed in. And I thought we could cover it on here.
Okay.
As it popped into my head.
What's the issue in the group? I haven't been following it.
Pretty much just said, what are your thoughts on water swatting? Do you, don't you? Do you think it's fair? Do you think it's, what's what? What's your feelings on it?
I do it. I think it's fair. And if you don't want to do it, that's fine. Respect your decision. But until the rule book says it's against the law to do it, I'm going to do it if I get the opportunity.
There you go.
Bottom line.
Yeah, a lot of, I think the majority said that they're going to send it without a doubt. And I like Ramsey Russell chimed in and said, all things considered, you don't have to lead him as much, which is very true. And
you're not wrong.
And, when it's a deception game, right? So you put all the money into decoys and the time into setting up and scouting and everything. And if you fool them, then survival of the fittest, right?
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate guys that have the whole sporting aspect of it to this argument, and I get that, But here's where I'm at with it, right? If I'm hunting a lot, 60 days a year, whatever, really out there a lot, maybe I would have that philosophy a little more, but my time in the field is so valuable, and it's harder and harder to come by. So if I get a duck that's legal, in range, on the water, I will shoot it 10 out of 10 times without question. Won't even think about it. And, if I miss, it'll fly, and then I'll shoot it flying. And if that's more sporting, then that's great. But the bottom line is I want to put ducks on the table, and that's what I'm out there to do.
And it's funny because the word sporting, right? So, and this goes back to Ramsey Russell again. He called, and we had a very long conversation, as you would imagine. And he was telling me some of the first duck hunts he went on as a child, as a young buck. And I'm not sure if it was with his dad or whoever his mentor was. I can't recall, but he had ducks that were, just on top of the decoys, and he pulled up and shot and got yelled at. And he said, the sport is to get them to fool them so much that they land in your decoys. So it's a totally different mindset of, sporting, I guess.
Yeah.
Some people appreciate the calling and pulling them all the way in, and some people call the sporting shooting them out of the air. So
yeah,
I mean, both are fun, both are legal.
I can both say right now, I'm not in the business of telling people what to do and how to enjoy their time in the field. So if it's legal and you like doing it, rock on, man. If it's legal and you don't like doing it, that's cool too. I mean, do you, right? I mean, no one should tell you how to enjoy your time. Just like no one should tell you what deer you shouldn't shoot or what, any of that stuff.
I was going to say it goes back to mature buck versus young buck.
Screw that. I mean, if your goal is to shoot a mature animal, then you pass on young bucks. If you want to put meat on your table, you shoot the first thing that walks in front of you, and there's nothing wrong with either one of those things. I mean, that's something that as a community we got to get away from that stuff. I mean, there's a million things that are dividing the community, and half of them are self-inflicted that we've brought upon ourselves. And this is definitely one of them. It's just the same argument as shooting hens and things, all that stuff. It's just got to stop worrying about how everyone lives their life, man. If it's legal, do you get out, enjoy time in the field, and respect each other. That's it, man. That's all it comes down to.
Yep.
So That's where I stand on it. I haven't chimed in on the Facebook group because I just don't really Facebook that much anymore, but that's where I stand on that.
I think that's a good spot to leave it, man.
I agree, but I'm sure you're going to throw one last thing at me here.
Have a happy 4th. I hope you eat a lot of smoked ribs.
Yeah, I hope you do the same. I'm sure you'll have ample opportunity. I mean, where you're going, it's like known for the barbecue, right?
Yep.
Part of the deal. All right. Well, on that note, hopefully you guys enjoyed talking wood ducks this week a little bit. And I just want to thank Eukanuba, Gunner Kennels, and Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy. CGA is the world's most comprehensive online gun dog training resource. They've got over 160 instructional videos that includes everything you need to take your 7-week-old puppy to a finished gun dog. Visit cornerstonegundogacademy.com, sign up for their free preview module, and begin your training journey today. Cornerstone Gun Dog Academy, the most advanced gun dog training resource on the web. All right, that does it for episode 142. Hopefully you enjoyed our chat about wood duck hunting, and if you're going to be getting after woodies for the first time this fall, I'm sure that'll help you have more success. If you're new to the show, head over to iTunes. You can check out all of our past episodes, and you can leave us a 5-star rating and review while you're there. It'll help like-minded hunters just like yourselves find our show. That's going to do it for this week. Hopefully you guys had a great 4th of July holiday. And until next time, for Dan, I'm Josh. Take care.